Welcome back to Untested Builds, where you figure out how to play as your favorite fictional characters in Pathfinder 2nd Edition. It's been entirely too long since I posted a video, so we're getting back into the swing of things and catching up on all the poll winners we missed last year. And since the new Book of the Dead rules just came out, it's the perfect opportunity to get everyone's favorite half-ghost onto the channel. If you somehow aren't familiar with the theme song, Danny Fenton was just 14 when he walked into a machine during an unexpected activation, Dr. Manhattan style, combining his molecules with that of an alternate dimension inhabited by ghosts, which either makes him a ghost with boy powers or a boy with ghost powers that we'll go over in the goals section, which is right now. For goals for this build, we need to be able to do everything a ghost can do, notably walking through walls, disappearing, and flying. Second, we have an unquenchable need to keep every ghost in the ghost zone, so we need some special abilities and tools to capture other ghosts and send them back to their realm. And last, if our ghost hunting parents ever found out we were secretly a ghost ourselves, they'd probably destroy us, so let's make sure we've got a decent disguise and some plausible deniability. For our stats, we're starting with 18 charisma. We'll lead legions of humans and legions of ghosts alike, despite being the most unpopular kid and ghost in town. 14 constitution, you got your molecules rearranged without being instantly bodied, half-bodied, whatever. You're basically indestructible now. 14 dexterity, years of ducking bullies have made us adept at avoiding ghostly attacks too. 12 intelligence, we didn't quite inherit our parents' super genius, but we were a straight A student before we picked up a certain extracurricular. And 10 strength and wisdom, we're still a teenager and a scrawny one at that. We'll have our chance to fill out in either direction, depending on whether we embrace our heroic side or go a bit darker. For our skills, we're legendary in occultism thanks to our access to our parents' years of ghost research and our own first-hand experience. Legendary thievery, no human could stop us even if they wanted to, not that we'd indulge too often. Master in acrobatics, mobility is one of the edges we usually have over more powerful ghosts. Expert stealth, we can go undetected when we put our mind to it, but we also get caught in the act and on camera a little too often for this to be higher. Training in athletics, we usually get thrown around by every ghost we come up against, but we could overpower pretty much any commoner we come across. And training in diplomacy and deception, sometimes we need to talk it out with the villains, and we still need to keep our secret identity a secret. Danny at least starts out as a human before becoming a phantom, so we will too. We're versatile human, meaning we can grab an extra general feat. The Die Hard feat is ironic considering what we're taking at level 2, but dying at dying 5 rather than dying 4 will help make sure we actually live to get that far. We'll take the energy scarred background on account of our horrific accident that gave us superpowers. We don't get a feat, but we do get resistance equal to half our level to a type of energy damage of our choice. You can be a pleb and choose fire damage since it's the most common energy type you're likely to take, but we're going with force damage for reasons that'll become apparent soon. For our ancestry feat, natural ambition helps us get a head start on our hero career with an extra level 1 class feat. Speaking of class, when I first started theory crafting this build, I figured we'd be flying around, punching baddies, never getting hit because we can just go intangible, basically a monk, but make it spooky. But upon actually rewatching the show, turns out Danny gets physically outclassed by pretty much every ghost he comes across, even the ones who are supposed to be less physically imposing like Ember or Poindexter, and they're able to ragdoll us at will. And we actually rely on our own energy-based attacks a lot more, making us more of a caster than anything. So we're going to lock in as a bard, specifically a warrior muse bard for martial performance, which gives us training in all simple and martial weapons right away. We aren't strangers to using whatever weapons we might come across or whatever special weapons our inventor parents whip up. We also get the standard bard composition spells, counter performance to give an ally a bit of ghostly protection, making a performance check as a reaction to rolling a saving throw against an auditory or visual effect, letting them use the better of our performance result or their original save. And inspire courage to give some reassurance from our less incorporeal half, giving allies within 60 feet a +1 bonus to attack rolls and damage rolls and saves against fear effects for 1 round. For our class feat, from Natural Ambition, Reach Spell is a meta magic feat that essentially adds an extra action to a spell we cast to increase its range by 30 feet, so we can spend more time in safe range instead of getting bodied range. Of course, we also get cantrips and first level spells. Telekinetic Projectile lets us use our surroundings to make a spell attack roll, dealing 1d6 plus our charisma modifier of bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage. Shield Touch gives us an ectoplasmic strike, forcing a fortitude save on a creature, dealing 1d4 plus our charisma modifier of negative damage to a living creature, or making an undead creature flat-footed for a round. And Shield to give us a +1 circumstance bonus to AC until our next turn that we can use to perform a shield block. Invisible Item makes an item invisible for an hour. Sometimes this job is easy. An illusory disguise to look the part of a hero, giving us that snow white hair and glowing green eyes, along with a signature jumpsuit befitting a Fenton. At level 2, we become Schrodinger's boy with the ghost dedication to do everything that a ghost can do, except walk through walls, disappear, and possess people. We can fly though, but only a few inches off the ground. We get the incorporeal trait, which is more of a hindrance than anything until we get more control of our powers. meaning we can only perform athletics checks on other incorporeal creatures, and any items we do interact with have to be made incorporeal first. But we do get low light vision, magical unarmed attacks that deal negative damage, immunity to death effects, and a +1 circumstance bonus to saves against diseases and poisons, and immunity to negative damage and negative healing thanks to our ghostly status. And now that we are a ghost, we should have a leg up on defending against their attacks as well. Recognize spell lets us identify a spell we see cast as a reaction and gain a +1 circumstance bonus against that spell if we critically succeed the check. Level 3 bards gain signature spells to choose a spell we know of every level and freely heighten that spell without needing to learn it at every level. Lightning reflexes increases our reflex saves to expert, and we gain second level spells. Invisibility makes a creature undetected for 10 minutes or until they make a hostile action, and see invisibility lets us see invisible creatures and objects as translucent shapes that are concealed to us, since ghosts are still able to see each other even when they are invisible to humans. For our general feat, we'll take the fleet feat for an extra 5 feet of movement speed. Not quite our max speed, but we'll get there eventually. We'll take the pickpocket feat so we can nab an item we need, even if it's closely guarded without taking the usual -5 penalty. Probably not hard to do when we're invisible too. For our class feat, Ghostly Resistance gives us resistance 1 to all damage types except for force and positive damage, and any damage from a weapon with the Ghost Touch rune, which means we officially have resistance to literally everything except positive damage, which isn't actually that common unless your GM decides to jam a bunch of literal ghost hunting divine casters into your campaign. Level 5 bards gain 3rd level spells. Haste gives a target the quicken condition for an extra action each round that can be used for a strike or stride, and we have Ghostly Weapon to give a non-magical weapon the effects of the Ghost Touch rune for 5 minutes. We don't need this for ourselves, we can already give our weapons Ghost Touch, but if our GM does happen to put a bunch of Ghost Hunters in your game, Danny is probably going to be on their side, and they would probably love to have free Ghost Touch on their weapons. You know, the fight against all the other ghosts. For our Ancestry feat, Adapted Cantrip lets us prepare a single cantrip from another magical tradition. Ray of Frost gives us some unexpected cryokinesis, dealing 3d4 plus our charisma modifier of cold damage to a target within 120 feet based on a spell attack roll. We start gaining some of our normal boy powers back with Ghostly Grabs, so now we can perform athletics checks on physical creatures and interact with physical objects, but we have to pass a DC 20 athletics or thievery check. So now that's a 55% chance of not accidentally phasing through things we try to touch. We're not completely incompetent. We also get advanced undead benefits, specifically Dark Vision, a +2 bonus to saves against diseases and poisons, as well as resistance equal to half our level, and a +1 circumstance bonus to saves against paralysis and sleep effects. For our skill feat, we'll pick up Dubious Knowledge, partly because we've picked up a lot from our Genius family, but we also don't always pay attention, so sometimes we misremember some things. Whenever we attempt a Recall Knowledge, a regular fail still gives us some true knowledge, but it also comes with some false knowledge with no real way to discern which is which. Level 7 bards are expert spellcasters who can cast 4th level spells. Invisibility heightened to level 4 lets us remain undetected even while making hostile actions, and mage armor is something we probably should have had already, but it's never too late for all day item bonuses to AC and saving throws. We'll take the numb to death feat. Once per day whenever we gain HP while dying, we regain an additional amount of hit points equal to our level, and we neither gain nor increase our wounded condition when we recover. We seem pretty resilient even by ghost standards. We get better at the whole not accidentally phasing through solid objects thing with Assurance and Thievery, so whenever we attempt a Thievery check to interact with a physical object, we can skip rolling the die or any other bonuses or penalties and get a +10 proficiency bonus instead, meaning we're now guaranteed to pass that DC 20 Thievery check. We get better at flying too. Ghost Flight lets us ignore the hover slightly above the ground feature of our ghostly form and gain a true flying speed for 10 minutes once per day. Level 9 bards gain resolve for master will saves and critical success results on regular successes, great fortitude for expert fortitude saves, and 5th level occult spells. Most ghosts on Galarian are souls that never got the chance to move on from the material plane, but ghosts in Danny Phantom are explicitly stated to be from another realm entirely, making them more akin to ethereals, or phantoms even, in Pathfinder. So we're going to make sure we're packing the banishment spell to force any creature back to its home plane if it fails a will save. Being an incapacitation spell, this is basically an auto signature spell since we'll usually want to cast it at the highest spell level we have. Ectoplasmic Expulsion lets us counteract a possession effect, affecting a creature within 30 feet. Even if we fail, they gain a +2 status bonus to whatever effect we attempted to counteract for the next hour, so they can probably try to get rid of them on their own. For our Ancestry feat, Adaptive Adept lets us add a 1st level arcane spell to our repertoire, and with the Fleet Step spell giving us a +30 foot bonus to our movement speed, we just might be able to keep up with the more experienced half ghosts out there. We'll finally finish off our main list of powers with Pass Through to attempt an acrobatics check to fly through walls and doors once per 10 minutes, typically a DC 30 check for 5-foot walls and a DC 15 check for doors officially gives us Master Infiltrator status, assuming we can pass our checks, that is. We'll improve our reaction time, going intangible from occult attacks, as well with quick recognition to use our recognize spell reaction as a free action once per round. Level 11 Warrior Bards gain Bar Weapon Expertise for expert proficiency in simple and martial weapons, and we gain the critical specialization effects of simple weapons as well as the other weapons on the Bard list while we are using one of our composition spells. We also gain Vigilant Senses for Master Perception proficiency and 6th level spells. Spirit Blast forces a Fortitude save on a creature dealing 16d6 force damage directly to that creature's spirit, handy when basically every villain you fight has the ability to possess your friends and innocent bystanders. And unlike Danny, who's a bit slow on the uptake sometimes, we'll probably be able to get the drop on the possessors with Incredible Initiative for a +2 bonus to all of our initiative rolls. Now that we're much more unique than the other guy, we can focus on our true calling of stopping every ghost that makes its way into our town through the interplanar portal in our basement. To help with that, we're picking up the Soul Warden dedication, another Book of the Dead archetype, this time connected to Pharasma, who will probably be pretty upset dealing with a being who's literally half boy, half ghost, but she gives us all the undead fighting abilities we could ever ask for. First, we get a symbol that we can emblazon on any object that alerts us whenever an undead creature or captive soul is within 100 feet, which is basically our ghost breath. Our symbol even glows dim light for a 10-foot radius, giving us that classic ghostly glow as well. And if that wasn't enough, we also gain Disrupt Undead as an innate divine spell that we can cast with our wisdom modifier, dealing 66 plus our wisdom modifier of positive damage to an undead creature based on a Fortitude save for our ever-present Ghost Ray. For our skill feat, Bizarre Magic increases the DC to identify our spells by 5, because honestly, I don't understand how a ghost kid became an agent of Pharasma either. Level 13 Bards gain Light Armor Expertise. We mostly run around in a hazmat jumpsuit, so not a whole lot of armor going on there anyway. Weapon Specialization gives us an extra 2 flat damage for our expert proficiency weapon and unarmed attacks, and we get 7th level spells. The Plane Shift spell can bring us or up to 8 willing creatures to another plane. We gotta use it again to get back, so don't blow all your spell slots before the end of the episode. This is mostly for getting living creatures to the ethereal plane or bringing ghosts to the material plane. For our Ancestry feat, Bounce Back is another ability that lets us skip gaining wounds when we recover from dying. This is a kid's show after all. We're going to dedicate another level to getting even more control over our ghost powers. We'll pick up another instance of Assurance, this time in Acrobatics, so we never have to worry about failing on a pass-through wall check. And Unlimited Ghost Flight, so we always have a true flying speed, but we can also still activate our Ghost Flight for a +10 bonus to our flying speeds for 10 minutes. Level 15 Bards are Master Spellcasters who can cast 8th level spells. Disappearance makes a creature you touch undetected for 10 minutes because giving humans temporary ghost powers is also a thing basically every ghost can do for some reason. For our general feat, the Toughness feat gives us an additional max HP equal to our level and reduces the DC of our recovery from dying checks by 1. We're not supposed to die, we're already dead. Half dead, whatever. The Liberate Soul feat basically lets us cast Ectoplasmic Expulsion once per hour instead of spending a spell slot. Your counteract DC is based on your divine spell DC, so it's tied to wisdom instead of charisma, so Ectoplasmic Expulsion is still better, but we're probably going to be undoing a lot of possessions. We don't always fight ghosts, sometimes we ask them for help too. Consult the Spirits lets us attempt an occultism check to spend 10 minutes talking to some nearby lingering spirits once per hour. They'll answer 1 question about the area if we succeed on the check, 3 if we critically succeed, and they'll give us up to 3 answers worth of harmful information if we critically fail. Level 17 Bards gain Greater Resolve for legendary will saves, critical success results on regular successes, regular fails on crit fails, and half damage from any failed will save. We also get 9th level spells, and we finally get the spells that force us down the caster route in the first place. Ethereal Jaunt heightened to level 9 puts ourselves and up to 5 willing creatures somewhere between the ethereal plane and the material plane, meaning they get all of the ghostly benefits we enjoy, but without the whole Schrodinger's paradox and intensive training. They can travel through physical obstacles, creatures on the material plane can't see them, and they can travel in any direction, so walking through walls, disappearing, and flying, that we can sustain for up to a minute. And Possession, heightened to level 9, is an immediate Pharasma Edict violation, letting us physically jump into another creature, forcing a will save on them, taking partial control if they fail, forcing new will saves on each of their turns, controlling them that turn if they fail, and not if they succeed. We get knocked out of their body immediately on any turn they critically succeed their check, and if they critically failed the initial check, we're going to take control of them for up to 10 minutes while they watch from the sunken place as punishment for critically failing. Despite our frankly horrifying powers, we've still managed to secure our place as a hero among living humans as well as ghosts. The Heroic Presence Ancestry feat lets us give up to 10 allies the effect of 6 level Zealous Conviction once per day, giving them 12 temporary hit points and a +2 status bonus to their will saves against mental effects for 10 minutes, or until we give them an order they don't necessarily agree with. So keep your humans attacking ghosts and your ghosts attacking more threatening ghosts, and you'll probably be fine. We've been neglecting our thievery skill the last dozen or so levels, but now we'll pick up wary disarmament for a +2 bonus to our AC or save against the effect of a device or trap we're attempting to disarm now that we're way better at going intangible even in tense situations. We've been neglecting our focus spells for too long too. The Domain Initiate feat gives us one of Pharasma's initial domain spells. We're choosing the Death Domain for Death's Call to gain some temporary HP as a reaction whenever a living creature near us dies or an undead creature is destroyed. The amount we gain is equal to the creature's level plus our wisdom modifier, and we gain double if the creature was undead. This is actually something we picked up from an evil version of ourselves from 10 years in the future, who, fun fact, also traveled through time and defeated a team of heroes before uttering "I am inevitable" 14 years before Thanos. Level 19 bards are legendary spellcasters who gain their magnum opus, aka a 10th level spell slot. The Shadow Army spell creates a bunch of copies of ourselves in a 50-foot burst that attack enemies who end their turn in the area, forcing will saves on them, dealing 3d10 mental damage and 3d10 bludgeoning damage, and forcing our choice of Clumsy 2, Enfeebled 2, Flat-footed, or Slowed 1 on them. Took us a long time to learn this one, but good thing we got inspired by that other half ghost person. For our general feat, Canny Acumen gives us mass proficiency in a save of our choice or perception, and you can't go wrong with fortitude or reflex, but I'm going reflex here because I just like the idea of agile Danny more than juggernaut Danny, but you do you. These builds are more suggesting than anything concrete anyway. For our final skill feat, Legendary Thief lets us steal even actively worn items by taking a -5 penalty to the check as long as we can remain hidden throughout the process. Probably not hard considering we can, just be invisible. For our capstone feat, we gain another gift from Dark Danny, namely the Ghostly Whale. With Advanced Domain for the Eradicate Death Domain spell, we force a Fortitude save in a 30-foot cone, dealing 10d12 positive damage to every undead creature in the area. Simple, effective, and our version doesn't actually hurt anything other than ghosts. But we're the good Danny after all, so that makes sense. Actually, I had two versions of the build, one for regular Danny and one for Dark Danny that was a bit more fighty, and with the Cry of Destruction spell for his Ghostly Whale. But I wasn't too happy with either version, so they kind of got combined into the same build, which is pretty thematic in its own right in my opinion. But now that we're level 20, let's go over the pros and cons of the build. For starters, being a ghost is actually pretty OP once we finally get all the numerous feats we need to control our abilities: unlimited flight, nearly unrestrained bypassing of obstacles, and at least basic resistance to practically everything. And that's before we look at our actual abilities we gain from spells, which give us even more ways of getting ourselves and our friends through encounters in unique ways. For our cons, there's a lot. We don't really have a good way of passing as a living human for extended periods of time like we do on the show, meaning NPCs and party members might be a little harder to convince of your heroic nature than expected. And we also spend a really long time just figuring out the whole ghost thing, a solid 10 levels before we even really start picking up ghost fighting abilities. And paradoxically, our best ghost fighting abilities are actually tied to our wisdom modifier, but charisma is our actual main stat. That weakness carries over into our skills too, where we rely on occultism for a good bit, but our intelligence is actually our 5th worst ability score. But paradoxes are just another day in the life and death of Schrodinger's boy. Thanks for tuning in to another build, and thanks to everyone who's continued to support, comment, and rewatch the videos through my sporadic uploads. We'll be back soon with a girl who bit off a bit more than she can chew and found herself fighting alongside her oppressors. Until then, take care, stay safe, and play more Pathfinder.